Hi, I'm Tanya. Welcome to the Midnight Creek. Today we're not just scratching the surface of the supernatural, we're jumping headfirst into what many call Britain's most haunted castle. We're talking about Chillingham Castle in Northumberland. I mean, just the name sends a shiver down my spine. If you like our content, please subscribe.
Oh, absolutely, Tanya. Chillingham is legendary. I think it's one of those places that even the most hardened skeptics would think twice about spending a night alone in. The history there is just palpable. You can practically feel centuries of brutality and sorrow hanging in the air.
It's true. And we've been looking at a recent ghost hunt report, and honestly, the findings are pretty compelling. It's not just old wives' tales. People are actively experiencing things there, even now. It's wild.
Yeah, I was reading through that report, and what really stood out to me was the sheer consistency of the phenomena across different teams and different times. It's not just one person seeing something, it's a chorus of experiences, if you will. The castle dates back to the 12th century, and its history is intense, to say the least. Torture chambers, dungeons, centuries of conflict. It's a perfect storm for residual energy.
Exactly. And let's get right into it because when you talk about Chillingham, you can't not talk about the Blue Boy. This is probably one of the most famous resident spirits there, right? The report mentions activity in the Pink Room. Can you guys shed some light on that?
The Blue Boy, yes. He's traditionally associated with the Pink Room. The story goes that he was a young page boy, possibly bricked up alive within the walls. Guests and investigators often report hearing heart-wrenching cries of a child, especially around midnight. And the most striking thing is seeing a blue light, or a blue halo, sometimes even a full blue apparition, appearing over a four-poster bed in that very room.
People specifically talk about a person who was in the Pink Room feeling an intense cold spot, a distinct presence, and then hearing a faint, soft cry. Just imagine that. You're in a historic, ancient room and you hear a child crying and there's no child there. That's next level chilling.
And the fact that it's often described as a blue light or a blue figure. That's a very specific detail that's come up repeatedly over the years, not just in this report. It gives it a certain legitimacy, I think, when you have those consistent details across different accounts. It's not just a general ghost sighting.
It's almost like a fingerprint, isn't it? A blue fingerprint. And then, from the tragic innocence of the Blue Boy, we swing to the utterly terrifying. We have to talk about John Sage, the torturer. His presence is said to linger in the dungeons and torture chamber, right?
Oh, John Sage is a whole different beast. Reports of intense feelings of dread and oppression in the torture chamber. Some participants described a sudden, overwhelming sense of suffocation, even nausea. It's like the residual energy of all that pain and suffering is still concentrated there. The air itself feels heavy.
I read that one participant felt a distinct hand on their shoulder in the torture chamber when no one else was near them. That's not just a feeling, that's a physical sensation. And the smells, too: sulfur, decay, even stale blood reported by some. It's like your senses are being assaulted from all angles.
Yeah, and the EMF meters, the K2 meters, were spiking consistently in those areas. It wasn't just imagination. Something was clearly interacting with their equipment. It's hard to dismiss those kinds of readings when they're happening in response to specific questions or during moments of heightened activity. It suggests an intelligent energy, not just residual.
That's fascinating, Andrew, because it brings up the whole debate. Is it intelligent haunting or just an echo? With John Sage, if the equipment is reacting, it feels more like an active presence trying to communicate, doesn't it? And then there's Lady Mary Berkeley, the Grey Lady. Where does she tend to make her presence known?
Lady Mary is more of a wandering spirit, often seen in the courtyard or near the chapel. She's less about direct interaction and more about fleeting glimpses, a sense of being watched, or disembodied footsteps. A specific instance where dowsing rods crossed in the courtyard, seemingly pointing towards the chapel, coinciding with a feeling of presence.
Her story is a bit more tragic too, isn't it? She was apparently heartbroken, left behind by her husband. So her haunting feels less malevolent and more sorrowful, a lingering echo of a woman in distress, perhaps searching for something she lost.
I think that's why Chillingham is so compelling. You've got this whole spectrum of spectral activity, from the innocent and tragic Blue Boy to the mournful Lady Mary to the genuinely terrifying John Sage. It's like a haunted house but with a full cast of characters, each with their own story and energetic signature.
It's like a historical drama playing out over centuries. But let's talk about the more general phenomena beyond specific entities. Details of cold spots, shadow figures, and disembodied voices in places like the Great Hall. What do you make of that widespread activity?
That's where it gets really interesting. It suggests that the castle isn't just home to a few famous ghosts, but that the very fabric of the building, its ancient stones, somehow retain the energy of everything that's happened there. The Great Hall, for example, was a hub of activity for centuries. Laughter, feasts, arguments, politics, it's all imprinted there.
And the shadows, Sometimes it's just your mind playing tricks, but when multiple people report seeing shadow figures move quickly out of the corner of their eye, or a dark mass against a light background, you start to wonder if it's just visual trickery anymore. The report mentioned one participant felt like they were constantly being followed in the Great Hall, a prickling sensation on the back of their neck.
Yeah, and the disembodied voices, especially during EVP, electronic voice phenomenon sessions. People specifically talked about audible responses to direct questions. That's a huge leap from just a cold spot. That's communication. It's like someone or something is trying to interact, acknowledge their presence.
Which for me is the ultimate goal of a ghost hunt, right? To get that direct interaction. What did people say about the general feeling of the entire castle? Was it oppressive throughout, or were there pockets of intense activity?
It seemed like there were distinct hotspots, as we've discussed, the Pink Room, the dungeons, the Great Hall, and the courtyard. But the overall consensus was that the castle, as a whole, has an incredibly heavy atmosphere. Even in areas without overt phenomena, there's a constant sense of otherness, like you're never truly alone. It's an incredibly active location, which isn't a surprise given its reputation.
And it's not just about fear, I think, it's also about curiosity, isn't it? What happened to these people? Why are they still here? When you hear the cry of the Blue Boy, it makes you want to understand his story, to bring some kind of closure to it, even if you're just a visitor.
Absolutely. It's historical preservation of a different kind. These aren't just names in a book. They're lingering presences, reminders of a past that refuses to be forgotten. And when you have modern technology like EMF meters and EVP recorders validating those feelings, it really adds weight to the historical accounts.
So, for anyone listening, if you had the chance, would you spend a night in Chillingham Castle? Knowing what we know from people's experiences, the Blue Boy, John Sage, Lady Mary, the shadow figures, who's brave enough?
Oh, absolutely. I'd be terrified, but the thrill of potentially experiencing something firsthand, that's irresistible. I'd bring all my ghost hunting gear, a full charged phone, and maybe a friend to hide behind.
I think I would. I mean, it's one thing to read about it, another to be there. I'd want to feel that presence, to maybe try to communicate. Though I'd probably spend most of the night jumping at every creak and groan.
I'm in, but I'm bringing holy water, sage, and a very large flashlight. You know, just in case John Sage decides he needs a new assistant in the torture chamber. Seriously, though, places like Chillingham remind us that history isn't always confined to textbooks. Sometimes it screams.
It certainly does scream at Chillingham Castle. What an incredible, chilling deep dive into one of Britain's most haunted locations. Thank you, Mark, Sarah, and Andrew, for exploring these spooky tales with me. And thank you, listeners, for joining us on this spine tingling journey. Until next time, stay curious and stay afraid.